Day 47, Salt with you.
Hey there, I'm Sarah. This is part 2 of my little series on what I've learnt in lockdown. So in Luke, Jesus is having a meal with his mates, and it's actually leading up to a time where he's about to be sentenced to death and then crucified. And one of the things that he does while he's sharing this meal with them is that he takes a loaf of bread, he picks it up, and the first thing he does is he gives thanks to God for it. Then he takes it and he breaks it apart and shares it with his friends. What he says is, "This bread is just like my body. It's broken for you. Every time you eat this, do it in remembrance of me." So I think the thing that I love most about that little phrase is not actually that weird fortune-telling bit where Jesus knows that he's going to die. The thing that I love most about it is the fact that before any of it came to pass, before his death came to pass, before he was broken for us, he saw all of it and he still thanked God for it. When I was heading to Iraq, I started reading a devotion by Anne Voskamp, and it was based on her book called 1000 Gifts. And in it, she highlights something that really changed my life from that moment forward. When Jesus gave thanks for that bread, the Greek word, the original Greek that it was written in, the word there for he gives thanks is called Eucharisteo. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but it's something like that. Now, the root word of Eucharisteo is charis, meaning grace. Grace is the gift of God. Anne says in her book that Jesus took the bread, he knew that it was gift, everything that was to come was gift, and he gave thanks for it. He took the representation of his broken body and he thanked God for it. But even within that word, charis, or grace, is the derivative of it, chara. And chara is joy. So we're not talking about happiness, that fleeting feeling that we can have when something good happens to us. We're actually talking about that roots buried deep in him, that unshakable joy that we get only from Jesus. So this act of thanksgiving envelopes not only grace, identifying his good gifts, and even those gifts from him that maybe initially don't appear good to us, but it also is wrapped around joy. Paul also implores the church in Philippi to offer faith-filled requests before God with overflowing gratitude. He goes on to tell them to fasten their thoughts on every glorious work of God, and that the God of peace will be with them in all things. Now, the first time that this whole idea of thanksgiving is mentioned in the Bible is actually in Leviticus chapter 7. And at that point in the Bible, what's being talked about is the thanksgiving offering that the Israelites were required to do was all a part of the peace offering. So those two things were wrapped together. Could it be that peace and joy come to those who are thankful? My experience in difficult circumstances is actually just that. And initially, that act of giving thanks to God for things, even when it was difficult to see things to be thankful for, even though it was initially difficult, with practice, it became easier. It's a bit like when you're learning a musical instrument. With practice, there's an ease and a skill that comes to it. It's the same with Thanksgiving. So I just want to ask you, what are you thankful for today? Can I encourage you to pick up this practice of Thanksgiving and find 3 things that you're grateful for in every day? Stick with it and see if, it doesn't only become easier, but that you begin to reap joy and you begin to reap peace as you sow that act of thanksgiving.